The sound started as a whisper in the distance, barely audible over the chatter of students sprawled across the quad at Northwestern University. Maya Chen looked up from her organic chemistry textbook, her dark eyes scanning the cloudless October sky. The whisper grew into a rumble, then into something that made the windows of the library rattle behind her. "What the hell is that?" her roommate Jessica whispered, her voice tight with confusion. Preparing and narrating this type of story took us long efforts and hard work. So if you are enjoying the story, please consider subscribing to our channel. Maya's blood turned to ice. Water, she knew that sound. She'd heard it in her nightmares for 3 years, ever since the day her father never came home from his deployment in Afghanistan. The distinctive thwup-thwup of military helicopters, but these weren't the transport birds she remembered from base visits as a child. These were predators, sleek and black, cutting through the crisp Illinois air with the precision of surgical instruments. Students began pointing skyward, some laughing nervously, others pulling out phones to record what they assumed was some kind of military demonstration. Maya felt her hands trembling as she closed her textbook, her mind racing through possibilities, none of them good. She was just an 18-year-old freshman studying pre-med, the daughter of a fallen Green Beret who worked nights at a campus coffee shop to pay for textbooks. There was no reason for the military to know her name, let alone her location. The helicopters, 3 of them, she could see, now began circling the campus in a pattern that spoke of tactical precision. Maya recognized the formation from her father's old military manuals, books she'd devoured after his death, trying to understand the world that had claimed him. This wasn't a demonstration or a recruitment stunt. This was an extraction formation. "Maya, you're scaring me," Jessica said, grabbing her arm. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Before Maya could respond, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Package identified. Move to coordinates 42.0565N, 87.6773W, 60 seconds. Maya's hands shook as she pulled up a Maps app. Those coordinates placed her exactly where she was sitting on the quad. Her throat went dry as the implications crashed over her like a tsunami. Someone had been tracking her. Someone knew her exact location down to the meter. Someone with access to military-grade helicopters and the authority to deploy them on American soil. The first helicopter touched down on the soccer field adjacent to the quad, its rotors whipping fallen leaves into a frenzy. Students scattered, some screaming, others standing frozen in disbelief. Campus security guards spoke frantically into their radios, but Maya could see the helplessness in their eyes. Whatever was happening here was beyond their clearance level. 6 figures in full tactical gear emerged from the helicopter, their faces hidden behind night vision goggles despite the afternoon sun. They moved with the fluid precision of an elite unit, their weapons held at ready but not aimed at the fleeing students. Maya noticed the patches on their uniforms, no national flags, no unit identifiers, just a simple Delta symbol in matte black against darker black fabric. Delta Force. Her father had told her stories about them, the Army's most elite counterterrorism unit, ghosts who appeared when conventional forces couldn't handle a situation. But what could they possibly want with a college freshman who struggled to afford ramen noodles? "Maya Chen," the lead operator called out, his voice amplified by a small speaker clipped to his vest. "We need you to come with us." The quad fell, silent except for the spinning rotors. Hundreds of students stared at Maya, their faces a mixture of terror and fascination. She felt like an animal in a zoo, pinned under the weight of their collective gaze. Her legs felt like water, but somehow she managed to stand. "There's been a mistake," she called back, her voice cracking. "I'm nobody. I'm just a student." The operator stepped forward, removing his goggles to reveal kind but determined brown eyes. He looked like he could be someone's father, which somehow made this entire situation more surreal. "Ma'am, I understand this is confusing, but we have A situation that requires your immediate assistance. Lives are at stake. Maya's mind reeled. What kind of situation? I don't understand any of this. Your father was Staff Sergeant David Chen, Green Beret, killed in action 3 years ago in Afghanistan. Is that correct? The mention of her father's name hit her like a physical blow. She nodded, not trusting her voice. Before his death, Sergeant Chen was involved in a classified operation. Information has come to light that suggests you may have knowledge crucial to national security. We need to debrief you immediately. I don't know anything about my father's work, Maya protested. He never talked about it. Military families know not to ask questions about classified operations. The operator's expression softened slightly. Ma'am, we understand this is overwhelming. But 3 American hostages are being held by a terrorist cell in Syria, and we believe your father left information that could help us locate them. Every minute we waste here is a minute those hostages spend in captivity. Maya felt the world spinning around her. American hostages. Her father's classified work. Knowledge she supposedly possessed but didn't remember having. It felt like being thrown into the middle of a movie, except the stakes were real and the consequences would follow her for the rest of her life. Jessica grabbed her arm tighter. Maya, you can't just go with them. This is insane. Where are your rights? Where are the lawyers? The operator overheard. Ma'am, your friend can accompany you if it makes you more comfortable. This is a voluntary consultation, not an arrest. But I need to stress the urgency of the situation. Maya looked around at the hundreds of staring faces, at the professors who had emerged from buildings to witness the spectacle, at the campus security guards who looked completely out of their depth. Her normal life organic chemistry exams, work-study shifts, weekend movie nights with Jessica suddenly felt like someone else's memories. What kind of information could I possibly have? She asked. I was 15 when my father died. He never told me anything about his missions. The operator stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. Before deployment, did your father ever give you any gifts? Any objects that seemed unusual or that he emphasized were important to keep safe? Maya's hand instinctively moved to the pendant hanging beneath her shirt, a small silver compass her father had given her for her 15th birthday, just weeks before his final deployment. He'd made her promise to always wear it, said it would help her find her way home no matter how lost she got. She'd assumed it was sentimental, a father's way of staying connected to his daughter across the distance of war. The operator noticed her gesture and nodded grimly. We need to examine that pendant, Miss Chen. It may contain more than sentimental value. Maya's world tilted on its axis. The compass, her most treasured possession, the last gift from her father, was apparently connected to a classified military operation and the lives of American hostages. She thought of the countless times she'd held it during lonely nights after his death, finding comfort in its weight against her chest, never imagining it might hold secrets that could save lives. If I come with you, she said quietly, how do I know I'll make it back to my normal life? The operator's expression was honest and direct. Ma'am, I can't make guarantees about what normal looks like after today. But I can promise that if you help us save those hostages, you'll have done something your father would be proud of. Maya looked at Jessica, whose face was pale with worry and confusion. She thought about her midterm exams next week, her shift at the coffee shop tomorrow morning, the study group she was supposed to meet with tonight. All of it felt suddenly trivial compared to the possibility that 3 American lives hung in the balance. The second helicopter had landed during their conversation, disgorging more tactical operators who formed a perimeter around the area. Maya noticed they were keeping curious students and faculty at a respectful distance, but their presence was unmistakably intimidating. This wasn't a request she could simply decline and walk away from. Can Jessica really come with me? Maya asked. Your friend will be debriefed separately and released within a few hours. You, however, may be needed for an extended period depending on what we discover. Maya closed her eyes and tried to imagine what her father would want her to do. David Chen had always taught her that service meant sacrifice, that sometimes individuals had to step up for causes bigger than themselves. But he'd also wanted her to live a normal life, to stay as far away from the dangerous world he inhabited as possible. "Miss Chen," the operator said gently, "the clock is ticking." Maya opened her eyes and looked one more time at the scattered textbooks, at the normal college life she was about to leave behind. Then she reached up and pulled the silver compass from beneath her shirt, holding it in her palm. It looked so ordinary, so innocent, but apparently it held secrets that men with helicopters and tactical gear deemed worth disrupting her entire existence to obtain. "Okay," she said quietly, "I'll come with you." As she walked toward the helicopter with Jessica beside her and hundreds of students recording every step on their phones, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that she was crossing a threshold from which there would be no return. The girl who'd sat on the quad studying chemistry an hour ago felt like a stranger now. Someone from a simpler time when her biggest worry was whether she'd pass. Organic chemistry. The helicopter lifted off with a roar that drowned out all other sound, carrying Maya Chen away from her freshman year and toward a destiny she never could have imagined. Below them, the campus grew smaller and smaller until it was just a collection of buildings in the vast tapestry of the American Midwest. And Maya realized with a mixture of terror and anticipation that her real education was just beginning. Helicopter's interior was nothing like the military transport birds Maya remembered from childhood visits to her father's base. This was a flying command center lined with monitors, communication equipment, and seats that looked designed for long-duration missions. As they lifted off from Northwestern's campus, Maya pressed her face to the small window, watching her normal life shrink away beneath them. That Jessica sat beside her, gripping her hand so tightly that Maya's fingers were starting to go numb. Neither of them had spoken since takeoff, both overwhelmed by the surreal nature of their situation. Maya kept touching the compass pendant, now hanging openly over her shirt, its familiar weight somehow both comforting and ominous. The lead operator, who had introduced himself simply as Colonel Morrison, sat across from them with a tablet in his hands. He'd been typing steadily since takeoff, occasionally glancing up at Maya with an expression she couldn't quite read. Finally, he set the tablet aside and leaned forward. "Miss Chen, I know this is overwhelming, so let me start with what we know. For certain, 3 weeks ago, our intelligence services intercepted communications from a terrorist cell planning to have information about Operation Nightingale, a classified mission your father participated in during his final deployment." Maya's chest tightened at the mention of her father's last mission. She'd never known its name, just that he'd been killed during what the official reports called a routine patrol that encountered unexpected resistance. The idea that it had been something more significant, something with a code name and lasting implications, made her father's death feel both more meaningful and more tragic. "The terrorist cell," Morrison continued, "is demanding the return of what they call the Navigator in exchange for 3 American aid workers they captured 2 months ago in northern Syria. Our analysts believe the Navigator refers to an encoded device that was supposed to be recovered from your father's mission, but never made it back to command." Maya's hand went instinctively to her compass. "You think this is it? This compass? We think it's possible. Your father was the team's navigation specialist, and the timing fits. He gave you that pendant just before his final deployment, correct?" Maya nodded, her throat tight with emotion. She remembered that last conversation with her father, how he'd seemed different somehow, not scared, exactly, but weighted down with something he couldn't share. He'd made her promise to always wear the compass, to keep it safe, to never lose it. At the time, she'd thought he was just being sentimental. A father trying to maintain connection with his daughter across the dangerous distance of war. If this compass contains the information they want, Maya said slowly, what happens to the hostages if we don't give it to them? Morrison's expression was grim. Intelligence suggests they'll be executed within 72 hours. The terrorists are using the hostages as leverage to force our hand, betting that we value American lives more than whatever secrets that device contains. And what if we do give it to them? What's so important about whatever's encoded in here? Morrison hesitated, clearly wrestling with how much classified information he could share. Operation Nightingale involved mapping terrorist supply routes and safe houses throughout the region. If that information falls into the wrong hands, it could compromise ongoing operations and endanger assets we have in place throughout the Middle East. Maya felt the crushing weight of an impossible choice. 3 innocent people would die if she didn't surrender her father's final gift, but doing so might compromise operations that could save many more lives. It was the kind of moral calculus her father had faced every day of his military career. And now it was her burden to bear. Jessica, who had been silent throughout the conversation, finally spoke up. Maya, this is insane. You're 18 years old. This isn't your responsibility. Maya looked at her best friend, seeing the fear and confusion in her eyes. Jessica was right. By any reasonable measure, the situation was far beyond what any college freshman should have to handle. But Maya kept thinking about her father's words from years ago. Sometimes the right choice isn't the easy choice. Sweetheart, sometimes we have to carry weights that feel too heavy because no one else can carry them. Where are we going? Maya asked Morrison, Joint Base Andrews. We have a team of cryptographers standing by to analyze the compass. If it does contain the intelligence we suspect, we'll need to decode it quickly to verify its contents before making any decisions about the hostages. Maya leaned back in her seat, trying to process the enormity of what was happening. 12 hours ago, her biggest concern had been whether she could afford the updated edition of her biology textbook. Now she was flying toward a military base, carrying what might be classified intelligence that could determine whether 3 Americans lived or died. She thought about her daily routine at Northwestern, waking up at 6 a.m. to her alarm, grabbing coffee and a bagel from the dining hall, rushing to her morning chemistry lecture where she always sat in the 3rd row because her father had taught her that sitting up front showed respect for the instructor. After classes, she'd work her shift at the campus coffee shop, serving lattes to graduate students and professors while trying to squeeze in homework during quiet moments. Evenings were usually spent in the library or her dorm room. Textbooks spread across every surface while she worked through problem sets and read chapters that made her head spin with their complexity. Sometimes she'd video chat with her mother, who had moved to Portland after her father's death and was slowly rebuilding a life that didn't revolve around military schedules and deployment cycles. Maya had chosen pre-med specifically because it was as far from her father's world as she could get while still honoring his emphasis on service. Medicine was about healing, about saving lives without the moral ambiguity and life or death decisions that had ultimately cost him his life. Or so she'd thought. Tell me about your father, Morrison said gently. What was he like as a person, not just as a soldier? Maya smiled despite her anxiety. He was careful about everything. He'd check the locks on our doors 3 times. Before going to bed, always parked his car facing outward so he could leave quickly if needed. But he was also incredibly gentle. He'd read me bedtime stories in different voices for all the characters. And he taught me how to braid friendship bracelets when I was 8, because he said every girl should know how to make something beautiful with her hands. She paused, memories flooding back. After he came back from his first deployment in Iraq, he was different for a while. Quieter. My mom said he had nightmares, though he tried to hide them from me. But gradually, he found his way back to being present with us. He'd take me hiking on weekends, teaching me how to read topographical maps and use a compass for real navigation. not just the kind of play compass work I'd done in Girl Scouts. Morrison nodded, taking notes. Did he ever talk about his work, even in general terms? Never specifics, but sometimes he'd talk about the importance of precision, of attention to details that might seem insignificant, but could mean the difference between mission success and catastrophe. He'd say that in his line of work, a single wrong turn or a missed signal could cost lives, so everything had to be checked and double-checked and verified through multiple sources. Maya touched the compass again. When he gave me this, he said it would always help me find my way home. But he also said something else that seemed strange at the time. He told me that sometimes the most important navigation happens inside ourselves. Finding the true north of our own moral compass when the external world doesn't make sense. Sounds like he was preparing you for something, Morrison observed. Maybe, or maybe he just knew that life has a way of putting us in situations where we have to choose between difficult options and live with the consequences. The helicopter banked sharply, and Maya looked out the window to see a massive military installation spread out below them. Runways, hangars, and buildings stretched to the horizon, with aircraft of various sizes and configurations parked in precise rows. This was a different world from her college campus, one where every structure and system existed to project American power across the globe, as they descended toward a landing pad. Maya thought about the 3 hostages somewhere in Syria, probably, not knowing that their lives might depend on a compass carried by a college freshman they'd never met. She thought about her father, 3 years dead, but somehow still reaching across time to place impossible choices in her hands. And she thought about herself, Maya Chen, pre-med student, coffee shop employee, daughter of a fallen soldier, suddenly thrust into a situation where her next decision could have international consequences. The helicopter touched down with barely a bump, testament to the pilot's skill and the aircraft's advanced systems. As the rotors began to wind down, Morrison stood and extended his hand to help Maya from her seat. "Ready?" he asked. Maya looked at Jessica, who squeezed her hand. "One more time." Then she looked at the compass pendant, wondering what secrets her father had hidden inside its innocent-looking silver casing. Finally, she looked at Morrison and nodded. "I'm ready." But as they walked toward the waiting ground crew and the sterile buildings beyond, Maya wondered if anyone could ever really be ready for the moment when childhood ended and the adult world revealed its true complexity. All she knew for certain was that there was no going back to the girl who had been studying organic chemistry on the quad. Just a few hours ago, the briefing room at Joint Base Andrews looked like something out of a spy thriller, wall-mounted monitors displaying satellite feeds, world maps marked with red pins and blue zones, and a conference table surrounded by people whose very presence suggested the situation was far more complex than Maya had initially understood. Admiral Sarah Knox sat at the head of the table, her silver hair pulled back in a severe bun that matched her no-nonsense expression. To her right was Dr. James Park, a cryptographer whose thick-rimmed glasses and nervous energy made him look more like a college professor than someone with top-secret clearance. Colonel Morrison took a seat across from them, while Maya and Jessica were directed to chairs that felt simultaneously comfortable and constraining. "Miss Chen," Admiral Knox began without preamble, "we've run preliminary scans on your compass pendant, and our initial findings are concerning." Maya felt her stomach drop. Concerning how? Dr. Park leaned forward, pulling up a holographic display that showed a 3-dimensional cross-section of her compass. The device contains microcircuitry that's far more sophisticated than anything that should exist in what appears to be a simple navigation tool. There are data storage components, encryption modules, and what looks like a GPS tracking system, all miniaturized to an extraordinary degree. "GPS tracking?" Maya's voice came out as a whisper. "You mean it's been broadcasting my location?" "Not broadcasting," Dr. Park clarified quickly. "Recording. Every place you've been, every route you've taken, has been logged and stored in the device's memory banks." But here's where it gets interesting. The data appears to be cross-referenced with temporal markers and what look like behavioral pattern analyses. Admiral Knox pulled up another display, this one showing a map of the Northwestern University campus with Maya's movements over the past 3 years, highlighted in different colors. Your father didn't just give you a compass, Miss Chen. He gave you a surveillance device that's been creating a detailed profile of your life, your habits, your associations, and your decision-making patterns. Maya felt like she'd been slapped. The most treasured possession from her father, the one connection she'd maintained to his memory, had been watching her, recording her, analyzing her like some kind of experiment. Why would he do that? What possible reason could he have had? Colonel Morrison spoke up, his voice gentle but grave. We think Operation Nightingale wasn't just about mapping terrorist networks. We think it was about developing a new kind of intelligence asset, one that could operate undetected in civilian populations while gathering behavioral data that could predict and prevent terrorist activities. You're saying my father was using me as a test subject? The words tasted bitter in Maya's mouth. We're saying your father may have been forced into an impossible situation, Admiral Knox replied. Intelligence gathered from terrorist communications suggests that Operation Nightingale was compromised from the beginning. Your father and his team were walking into a trap, and he may have hidden the real intelligence in your compass as a way to ensure it survived, even if he didn't. Dr. Park manipulated the holographic display to show layers of encrypted data. The behavioral profile your compass has been building isn't just about you, Maya. It's been analyzing everyone you interact with, mapping social networks, identifying patterns that could indicate radicalization or terrorist sympathies within civilian populations. Maya felt sick. You mean it's been spying on Jessica? On my professors? On everyone at the coffee shop where I work? The implications are staggering, Admiral Knox confirmed. If this technology works as designed, it could revolutionize how we identify threats before they materialize. But in the wrong hands, it could also be used to profile and target innocent civilians based on algorithmic assumptions about their behavior patterns. Jessica, who had been silent throughout the briefing, finally found her voice. This is a violation of privacy on a scale I can't even comprehend. Maya's been carrying around a surveillance device that's been analyzing everyone she's ever met without their knowledge or consent. Which brings us to our current crisis, Colonel Morrison said grimly. He pulled up new satellite imagery showing a compound in the Syrian desert. The terrorist cell holding the American hostages isn't just demanding the return of the navigator. For sentimental reasons, our intelligence suggests they have a sophisticated understanding of what that device represents and what it can do. A new voice joined the conversation as Director Rachel Martinez from the CI entered the room, her expression tense. We've intercepted additional communications from the terrorist cell. They're not planning to use the compass data for defensive purposes. They want to reverse engineer the behavioral profiling algorithms and use them to identify and recruit potential sympathizers within Western civilian populations. Maya felt the weight of implications crushing down on her. Her father's final gift wasn't just a surveillance device. It was a weapon that could be turned against the very people it was designed to protect. And now 3 innocent Americans would die unless she handed that weapon over to the people who wanted to use it for evil. What about the hostages? She asked. Have you been able to make contact with them? Director Martinez pulled up new footage on the main screen grainy video that showed 3 individuals in orange jumpsuits kneeling before masked captors. Maya recognized the staging immediately from too many similar videos that had dominated news cycles over the past decade. Dr. Emily Watson, a pediatrician from Doctors Without Borders, Martinez said, pointing to the first hostage. James Rodriguez, a civil engineer working on water infrastructure projects. And Sarah Kim, a journalist documenting humanitarian efforts in the region. All three were captured while traveling between aid distribution points. Maya studied their faces, seeing fear but also a kind of resigned courage that reminded her of her father's expression in his final video call home. These were people who had chosen to put themselves in danger to help others, just as her father had. The parallel wasn't lost on her. "How long do we have?" Maya asked. 47 hours. Admiral Knox replied. "The terrorists have given us a 72-hour deadline, and we've already burned through 25 hours getting you here and analyzing the device." Dr. Park cleared his throat. "There is one other option we need to discuss. The encryption on the behavioral data appears to have multiple layers of security, including what looks like a dead man's switch." "What kind of dead man's switch?" Maya asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. "If we attempt to access the core data without proper authorization codes, the device will wipe all stored information. But there's more. The compass appears to be biometrically locked to you specifically. Your heartbeat, your body temperature, even your stress hormone levels are being monitored. If the device detects that you're in extreme distress, or if it's separated from you for more than 12 hours, it triggers the same wipe protocol." Maya felt a chill run through her. "So even if I wanted to give it to the terrorists, it might not work for them?" "Miss Chen," Admiral Knox said quietly, "what you've just demonstrated in 5 minutes of video analysis represents capabilities that usually take our analysts hours to develop and confirm. The psychological conditioning your father's device has been providing appears to have been remarkably effective." Maya felt a complex mix of pride and violation. These were her father's skills, his training, his legacy, but they'd been implanted in her without her knowledge or consent. She was simultaneously grateful for the abilities and horrified by how she'd acquired them. "The question now, Colonel," Morrison said, "is whether you're willing to use those enhanced capabilities to help us locate and rescue the hostages before the deadline expires." "What exactly are you asking me to do?" Dr. Park pulled up a new interface that looked like something between a video game and a military planning system. "We want you to undergo accelerated psychological integration, while we use your biometric responses to unlock the compass's core data. Essentially, we'd be putting you in a controlled altered state while feeding you intelligence data, hoping that your enhanced pattern recognition abilities can identify connections and locations that traditional analysis methods miss." Jessica grabbed Maya's arm. "That sounds incredibly dangerous. What if something goes wrong? What if the psychological integration damages her mind permanently?" "The risks are significant," Admiral Knox admitted. "But the alternative is watching 3 innocent people die while a revolutionary surveillance technology falls into terrorist hands. Miss Chen, I need you to understand that this decision will define not just your own future, but potentially the future of intelligence gathering and civilian privacy rights worldwide." Maya looked around the room at the faces watching her: intelligence officers, military personnel, cryptographers, all of them representing different aspects of the shadow world her father had inhabited. She thought about Dr. Watson, James Rodriguez, and Sarah Kim, whose lives now depended on choices made by people they'd never met. She thought about her father, who had somehow anticipated this moment and spent 3 years preparing her for it. "If I do this," Maya said slowly, "if I undergo your psychological integration process and help rescue the hostages, what guarantees do I have about what happens to the surveillance technology afterward?" Director Martinez exchanged glances with Admiral Knox before responding. "That would depend on what we discover when we unlock the core data. If the technology is as revolutionary as we suspect, it will likely be classified at the highest levels and integrated into ongoing intelligence operations, which means it continues to exist, continues to be used to profile innocent civilians without their knowledge or consent." "That's one possibility," Admiral Knox confirmed. Another possibility is that we discover the technology is too dangerous to deploy, and we recommend its permanent classification or destruction. Maya felt the weight of an impossible decision. Save 3 lives and potentially enable the creation of a surveillance state, or let 3 innocent people die to prevent technology that might be used to violate the privacy of millions. It was the kind of moral calculus that had no clear right answer, the kind of choice that would haunt her regardless of what she decided. "I need to know something first," Maya said. "The behavioral profiling data the compass has collected on everyone I've interacted with, what happens to that information?" Dr. Park looked uncomfortable. "That information is already classified and will remain classified. It won't be used for prosecutions or investigations unrelated to national security threats. But it will be used." "Miss Chen," Colonel Morrison said gently, "that information has already identified potential threats that could save American lives. The question isn't whether it will be used, it's whether it will be used responsibly, under proper oversight, to protect innocent people, rather than to exploit them." Maya realized that her father had faced the same impossible calculus during Operation Nightingale. He'd been asked to develop technology that could save lives or destroy privacy rights, depending on how it was deployed. His solution had been to hide the technology inside his daughter, trusting that when the moment came, she would make the right choice. But what was the right choice? How could anyone weigh the certain death of 3 people against the hypothetical violation of millions of people's privacy? How could she trust that intelligence agencies would use this technology responsibly, when history suggested that powerful surveillance tools were inevitably abused? "I want to see the hostages again," Maya said. "But this time, I want to analyze the video while the compass is actively monitoring my biometric responses. If this device has been training me for 3 years, then maybe it can help me extract more information than conscious analysis alone." Dr. Park looked excited. "That's actually brilliant. We could use your enhanced pattern recognition abilities as a key to unlock deeper layers of the encryption. Your emotional and physiological responses to specific intelligence data might trigger authorization protocols your father built into the system." Admiral Knox nodded approvingly. "Miss Chen, that approach could potentially give us the intelligence we need to locate the hostages without requiring you to undergo full psychological integration. Are you willing to try that first?" Maya looked at Jessica, whose face showed a mixture of fear and reluctant admiration. Then she looked at the compass pendant, still hanging around her neck, still monitoring her every heartbeat and stress response. Her father's final gift, her technological leash, her enhanced capabilities, and her burden all wrapped up in a simple piece of silver jewelry. "Let's do it," Maya said. "But I want something in return. If we successfully rescue the hostages, I want a voice in determining what happens to this technology. I don't want to just be a passive key that unlocks classified intelligence. I want to be part of the decision-making process about how it's used going forward." Director Martinez smiled. For the first time since Maya had met her. "Miss Chen, I think your father would be very proud of the woman you've become. You have a deal." As Dr. Park began setting up the biometric monitoring equipment and the enhanced video analysis systems, Maya felt a strange sense of coming full circle. 3 years ago, her father had died in service to his country, leaving her a legacy she'd never understood. Now she was about to step into that legacy, not as a passive victim of circumstances, but as an active participant in determining how his sacrifice would be remembered. The compass pulsed against her chest, its monitoring systems detecting her elevated heart rate and stress hormones. But for the first time since learning the truth about the device, Maya didn't feel violated by its presence. Instead, she felt connected to her father across time and distance, carrying forward his mission while making it her own. "Ready?" Dr. Park asked, his fingers poised over the analysis controls. Maya took a deep breath, feeling the weight of 3 lives and the future of surveillance. technology resting in her enhanced abilities and moral judgment. I'm ready. The analysis room had been transformed into something that looked like a fusion of medical laboratory and military command center. Maya sat in a specialized chair surrounded by biometric monitors, her compass pendant connected to a web of sensors that tracked everything from her heart rate variability to the micro changes in her brain wave patterns. The main screen displayed the hostage video, frozen on a frame that showed all three captives clearly. Dr. Park monitored the data streams while Director Martinez and Admiral Knox watched from an observation area behind reinforced glass. Jessica had been allowed to stay, her presence serving as both moral support and psychological anchor for Maya during the procedure. Remember, Dr. Park said, adjusting the final sensor connections, we're not just analyzing the video. We're analyzing your responses to the video while the compass monitors your enhanced pattern recognition processes. Your father designed this system to work with your natural abilities, not against them. Maya nodded, trying to relax despite the weight of expectation in the room. What exactly am I looking for? Anything that feels significant, Colonel Morrison replied. Trust your instincts. The compass has been training your subconscious for 3 years to recognize patterns and anomalies that conscious analysis might miss. Maya focused on the screen as the video began to play. This time, instead of fighting the analytical processes happening in her mind, she let herself sink into them. The compass grew warm against her chest as its monitoring systems registered her transition into the enhanced state of awareness her father had spent 3 years developing. Immediately, details that had seemed random before began forming patterns. Dr. Watson's glances weren't random. She was looking at a specific point every 47 seconds, as if marking time or waiting for something predictable to happen. James Rodriguez's hand positions weren't just nervous fidgeting. He was systematically touching different parts of his body in a sequence that corresponded to numbers. Sarah Kim's Morse code tapping wasn't just the letter V it was part of a longer message broken across multiple segments of the video. The acoustic signature, Maya said suddenly, her voice distant as she processed information on multiple levels simultaneously. There's a rhythmic sound in the background, very faint. It's not mechanical, it's organic. Footsteps, but not random foot traffic. Someone is walking the specific patrol pattern outside the room where they're being held. Dr. Park's fingers flew over his controls, isolating and enhancing the audio frequencies Maya had identified. Within moments, a clear pattern emerged: footsteps, following a route that took exactly 4 minutes and 20 seconds to complete. Military precision, Admiral Knox observed from the observation room. Whoever is guarding them has been trained to maintain exact timing intervals. Maya's enhanced awareness dove deeper into the sensory data. The lighting isn't just artificial, it's fluorescent, but old fluorescent with a specific flicker rate that indicates age in ballasts. Combined with the acoustic properties of the space and the temperature differentials I can see in the infrared signatures from the hostage's body heat, this is definitely a warehouse probably built in the 1980s based on the construction materials. Visible in the background, Director Martinez was already coordinating with satellite reconnaissance teams, using Maya's increasingly specific observations to narrow down potential locations throughout the Syrian operational area. There's something else, Maya continued, her consciousness seeming to split between the video analysis and the compass's deeper data streams. The reflection I noticed earlier, it's not just a corporate logo. It's a shipping company logo, and the geometric pattern underneath includes coordinates disguised as decorative elements. Dr. Park enhanced the reflection, and suddenly Maya could see numbers hidden within what had appeared to be purely artistic flourishes. 36 degrees, 14 minutes north, 37 degrees, 41 minutes east. That's incredibly specific, Colonel Morrison said, pulling up mapping software. Those coordinates place the location within a few hundred meters of a specific point in northern Syria. Maya felt the compass pulse against her chest as deeper layers of encryption began unlocking in response to her successful pattern recognition. Suddenly, her mind was flooded with information, not just about the current hostage situation, but about the entire network of intelligence her father had gathered during Operation Nightingale. "Oh my God," Maya whispered, her enhanced awareness expanding to encompass data streams she hadn't known existed. The terrorist cell holding the hostages, they're not working alone. The compass data shows connections to funding sources, supply networks, communication protocols. This isn't just a hostage situation. It's part of a larger operation planning coordinated attacks across multiple European cities. Admiral Knox leaned forward, her expression intense. "What kind of attacks?" Maya's consciousness navigated through layers of encrypted intelligence that felt simultaneously foreign and familiar, as if she were remembering rather than discovering. Infrastructure targets, power grids, water treatment facilities, transportation hubs. They're planning to create cascading failures that would disrupt civilian life across the region while making it appear like system malfunctions rather than terrorist attacks. Director Martinez was frantically coordinating with counterterrorism teams across Europe, using Maya's revelations to initiate protective measures for the identified targets. "The hostages," Maya continued, her awareness shifting back to the immediate crisis. "They're being held at the coordinates I identified, but it's a trap. The terrorists know the compass contains tracking capabilities. They're using the hostages as bait to draw American forces into an ambush that would eliminate the military assets needed to prevent the larger attack." Dr. Park monitored Maya's biometric data with growing concern. "Miss Chen, your stress levels are approaching dangerous thresholds. The psychological integration is progressing faster than we anticipated." Maya barely heard him. The compass had unlocked core layers of her father's mission data, and she was experiencing his memories as if they were her own. She could see Operation Nightingale through his eyes the moment he realized the mission was compromised. His desperate attempts to hide the intelligence before his team was overrun. His final decision to encode everything into a device that only his daughter could access. "He knew," Maya said, tears streaming down her face as she experienced her father's final thoughts. "Dad knew he wasn't coming home. He knew that someday I'd be sitting in a room like this, making the same impossible choices he faced." The compass isn't just a surveillance device, it's his way of passing on his mission, his dedication to protecting innocent people, even when the cost is personal sacrifice. Jessica moved closer, concerned by Maya's emotional state. "Maya, you don't have to do this. We can stop the procedure now." But Maya shook her head, her enhanced abilities now fully integrated with her conscious awareness. "I can see the solution. The terrorists expect us to mount a direct rescue operation that would walk into their ambush. But the compass data includes intelligence about their communication protocols and command structure. We can turn their own network against them." Admiral Knox activated the room's intercom system. "Miss Chen, what are you proposing?" Maya's consciousness navigated through the terrorist network's communication systems with the precision of a digital native, exploring familiar software. "We use their communication protocols to send false orders that will move their forces away from the hostage location while simultaneously providing their European assets with information that will cause them to abort their infrastructure attacks." "How do we do that without alerting them to the compromise?" Colonel Morrison asked. Maya smiled, feeling her father's tactical brilliance flowing through her enhanced analytical capabilities. "We don't need to infiltrate their communications directly. The compass data includes psychological profiles of key network members. We can predict how they'll respond to specific types of intelligence, then feed them information through their existing sources that will cause them to make the tactical decisions we want them to make." Dr. Park was monitoring data streams that showed Maya's brain operating at levels far beyond normal human capability. This is extraordinary. She's not just accessing the encrypted intelligence, she's using it to develop real-time, strategic solutions that integrate multiple intelligence disciplines. Over the next 2 hours, Maya orchestrated a complex psychological operation that used the terrorists' own behavioral patterns against them. Through carefully crafted misinformation delivered via sources the terrorists trusted, she convinced them that American forces were planning attacks on their supply bases that would require them to redeploy personnel away from the hostage location. Simultaneously, she fed their European cells information suggesting that their infrastructure targets had been hardened against attack, making their planned operations pointless. The hostage rescue took place exactly as Maya had predicted. With most of the guard force redeployed and the remaining terrorists convinced they were about to be attacked from a different direction, a small extraction team was able to free Dr. Watson, James Rodriguez, and Sarah Kim without firing a shot. As the news of the successful rescue reached the analysis room, Maya felt the compass's monitoring systems gradually returning her consciousness to normal operational levels. The enhanced awareness that had allowed her to navigate complex intelligence networks faded, leaving her feeling both accomplished and emotionally drained. The European infrastructure attacks have been abandoned, Director Martinez reported. Our sources indicate the terrorist cells received intelligence suggesting their targets were no longer viable. Admiral Knox entered the analysis room, her expression mixing respect with concern. Miss Chen, what you've accomplished today goes beyond anything we expected. You've not only saved 3 American lives, but potentially prevented terrorist attacks that could have killed thousands of civilians. Maya removed the sensor connections and stood up slowly, feeling the weight of what she'd experienced. And now you want to know what happens to the technology. That decision is ultimately yours, Admiral Knox confirmed. The compass responds only to you, and after what we've witnessed today, it's clear that your judgment in using its capabilities exceeds anything our traditional intelligence analysts could achieve. Maya looked at Jessica, whose face showed pride mixed with worry about what her friend had become. Then she looked at the compass pendant, no longer just her father's gift, but a tool that had revealed its true purpose through her willingness to use it for good. I want the technology to continue to exist, Maya decided, but not as a passive surveillance system. I want it to be used only for specific crisis situations, where enhanced analytical capabilities can save lives or prevent major threats to civilian populations. And I want oversight, not just from intelligence agencies, but from civilian authorities who can ensure the technology serves the public good rather than institutional interests. Director Martinez nodded approvingly. That seems like a reasonable framework. How do you envision your own role going forward? Maya had been thinking about that question since the moment the Delta Force helicopters had landed on her campus. I want to finish my medical degree, but I also want to be available for situations like this one. Not as a passive asset to be activated when convenient, but as an active participant in determining when and how these capabilities are deployed. Essentially, you want to be a consulting analyst with veto power over operations involving the compass technology, Colonel Morrison summarized. I want to be my father's daughter, Maya replied simply. Someone who uses enhanced capabilities to protect innocent people while maintaining the moral judgment to know when those capabilities shouldn't be used at all. Admiral Knox extended her hand. Miss Chen, on behalf of the United States Intelligence Community, I'd like to officially offer you a position as Special Consultant for Advanced Pattern Analysis, with full security clearance and authority to approve or decline any operations involving compass-derived intelligence. Maya shook her hand, feeling the weight of responsibility and opportunity in equal measure. I accept, but with conditions. I finish my medical degree first. I maintain my relationships and my life outside the intelligence community. And if I ever determine that this technology is being misused, I reserve the right to permanently disable it." "Agreed," Admiral Knox said. "Though I suspect your father would be proud to know that his sacrifice has resulted in not just enhanced intelligence capabilities, but enhanced moral oversight of how those capabilities are deployed." As Maya and Jessica prepared to leave the base and return to Northwestern University, Maya felt a profound sense of completion. Her father's mission had been passed to her not as a burden, but as an opportunity to carry forward his dedication to protecting innocent people. The compass around her neck was no longer a mystery or a violation. It was a tool that would help her serve others while maintaining her own moral compass. The Delta Force helicopter that returned them to campus flew over the same route that had brought them to Joint Base Andrews, but Maya saw the landscape differently now. Every city below represented people whose lives might be protected by the responsible use of enhanced intelligence capabilities. Every military installation represented the complex balance between security and freedom that democracy struggled to maintain. When they landed on the Northwestern campus, Maya was surprised to find that only 6 hours had passed since their departure. Students were still studying on the quad, professors were still teaching classes, and the coffee shop where she worked was still serving lattes to graduate students. Her extraordinary day of international crisis management existed in parallel with the ordinary rhythms of academic life. "Are you going to be okay?" Jessica asked as they walked back toward their dorm. Maya touched the compass pendant, feeling its gentle pulse against her chest as it continued monitoring her biometric responses while maintaining connection to intelligence networks around the world. "I think I'm going to be more than okay. I think I'm going to be exactly who my father hoped I would become." 3 months later, Maya sat in the same spot on the Northwestern Quad where the Delta Force helicopters had first landed. But now the October afternoon held different meanings. Her organic chemistry textbook lay open beside her, filled with notes. For the midterm exam she'd take tomorrow, the same exam she'd been studying for when her normal life had been interrupted by international crisis. Her phone buzzed with a text from an encrypted number. "Pattern analysis needed for situation in Eastern Europe. Your assessment required within 48 hours. Priority level high." Maya read the message twice, then deleted it. She had 3 more hours of studying to complete before her shift at the coffee shop, and she wasn't about to let her consulting work interfere with her academic responsibilities. The European situation would have to wait until after her biochemistry lab on Thursday. Jessica emerged from the library, carrying an armload of political science texts. "Another Save the World message?" she asked, noticing Maya's expression. "Probably," Maya replied, closing the chemistry textbook. "But the world can wait until I finish learning about enzymatic reactions." Over the past 3 months, Maya had been contacted 17 times by various intelligence agencies requesting her analytical capabilities for crisis situations. She'd accepted 8 of those requests, declining the others because they either didn't meet her criteria for genuine threat assessment or because they interfered with her academic schedule. Each accepted consultation had resulted in successful outcomes: hostage rescues, terrorist networks disrupted, international incidents diffused. But Maya had maintained firm boundaries about when and how her enhanced abilities would be deployed. "How's the new roommate adjustment going?" Jessica asked, settling onto the grass beside her. Maya smiled, thinking about Sarah Kim, the journalist they'd rescued from Syria, who had insisted on transferring to Northwestern to study alongside the woman who had saved her life. Sarah's presence in their dorm had initially been awkward. How do you live normally with someone whose life you've saved using classified intelligence capabilities? But gradually they'd developed a friendship based on shared understanding of how quickly ordinary life could intersect with extraordinary circumstances. "She's teaching me Arabic," Maya said. Turns out being able to read Middle Eastern intelligence reports in their original language makes my pattern analysis even more effective. And she's learning organic chemistry from you, despite being a journalism major. She says understanding different types of complex systems makes her a better investigative reporter. Plus, she wants to understand how my brain works when I'm in enhanced analysis mode. Maya's phone buzzed again, this time with a call from Dr. Park at Joint Base Andrews. She answered on the second ring. "Miss Chen, I hope I'm not interrupting your studies, but we've had an interesting development with the compass technology that I thought you should know about." Maya walked a few steps away from Jessica, lowering her voice. "What kind of development?" "We've successfully created a limited prototype of the behavioral analysis system, but without the invasive monitoring components. Instead of passively profiling individuals without their knowledge, the new version requires active consent from participants and focuses on enhancing their own decision-making capabilities rather than creating surveillance profiles." Maya felt a surge of interest. "So instead of spying on people, it helps them make better choices?" "Exactly. We're calling it adaptive decision support technology. Early testing suggests it could revolutionize everything from medical diagnosis to crisis management by enhancing human analytical capabilities without compromising privacy or autonomy." Maya thought about the implications. Her father's surveillance technology, refined and redirected, could become a tool for human enhancement rather than human monitoring. "What do you need from me?" "We'd like you to be the first test subject for the civilian applications. Your unique experience with both the original technology and enhanced pattern recognition makes you the ideal person to evaluate whether we've successfully preserved the beneficial aspects while eliminating the invasive elements." Maya looked at her compass pendant, which had become as natural a part of her daily routine as checking her phone or brushing her teeth. The idea of helping to develop technology that could enhance human capabilities without violating human privacy aligned perfectly with her vision of how her father's legacy should evolve. "Send me the briefing materials," she said. "I'll review them after my biochemistry exam." After ending the call, Maya returned to Jessica, who was watching her with the mixture of pride and concern that had become familiar over the past 3 months. "Another world-changing opportunity?" Jessica asked. "Maybe, but first, I need to pass organic chemistry." 6 months later, Maya stood at the podium in a lecture hall at Georgetown University, addressing an audience of intelligence professionals, academic researchers, and civilian oversight advocates. The Conference on Ethical Intelligence Enhancement had drawn attendees from around the world, all interested in the revolutionary applications of adaptive decision support technology. "The key principle," Maya explained, "is that enhanced analytical capabilities should amplify human judgment, not replace it. The technology should make us better at being human, not better at being machines." In the audience, she could see Admiral Knox and Director Martinez, both of whom had become valuable collaborators in developing ethical frameworks for intelligence enhancement. Sarah Kim sat in the front row, taking notes for a series of investigative articles about the intersection of technology and civil liberties. Jessica had flown in from Northwestern, where she was now studying international relations with a focus on intelligence oversight. "The compass technology that started this journey," Maya continued, "was designed by my father to solve an immediate tactical problem. But its real value lies in what it taught us about the potential for human enhancement technologies to serve human dignity rather than compromise it." After her presentation, Maya was approached by Dr. Alana Rodriguez, a neuroscientist from Stanford who had been working on similar technologies for civilian applications. "Ms. Chen, your work on consent-based enhancement protocols could revolutionize how we approach human-machine interface technologies. Have you considered the medical applications?" Maya smiled, thinking about her medical school applications, which she'd submitted the previous month with personal statements that would have been impossible to write before her encounter with military intelligence. Actually, Dr. Rodriguez, that's exactly what I plan to focus on during my medical training. I want to develop enhancement technologies that help doctors make better diagnostic decisions and help patients understand their treatment options more clearly. Essentially, you want to democratize the kind of enhanced analytical capabilities that intelligence agencies have been developing for classified applications. I want to honor my father's legacy by ensuring that the tools developed to protect national security can also be used to protect individual health and well-being. 2 years later, Maya walked across the stage at Northwestern University's graduation ceremony, her medical school acceptance letter in her pocket, and her compass pendant catching the light beneath her graduation gown. The crowd cheered as her name was announced, but Maya's attention was drawn to the small section where her most important supporters sat together. Her mother had flown in from Portland, tears streaming down her face as she watched her daughter graduate with highest honors despite the extraordinary circumstances that had interrupted her freshman year. Sarah Kim sat beside her, now working as an investigative journalist covering international human rights issues. Jessica wore her own graduation gown. They'd managed to complete their undergraduate degrees together despite Maya's consulting commitments. In the back of the auditorium, Maya spotted Colonel Morrison and Dr. Park, who had become regular collaborators. As Maya's role in intelligence operations had evolved from crisis consultant to strategic advisor on ethical technology deployment, after the ceremony, Maya found herself surrounded by friends, family, and colleagues who represented the different aspects of her life: academic achievement, intelligence work, technological innovation, and personal relationships. It struck her that her father's greatest gift hadn't been the compass technology itself, but the opportunity to build a life that integrated service to others with personal fulfillment. "So what's next?" her mother asked as they posed for pictures. Maya looked at her compass pendant, then at the faces of the people who had supported her journey from bewildered freshman to confident analyst to graduating senior. Medical school, obviously, but also continued consulting work on intelligence enhancement technologies. And Sarah and I are planning to collaborate on a documentary about the ethical implications of surveillance technologies in democratic societies. And maybe, Jessica added with a grin, occasionally taking breaks to be normal 20-somethings who watch movies and complain about their dating lives. Maya laughed, realizing that despite everything she'd experienced over the past 2 years, she was still fundamentally the same person who had been studying organic chemistry when the helicopters landed. The enhanced analytical capabilities, the classified consultations, the international crisis management, all of it had been integrated into her life without overwhelming her essential humanity. 5 years later, Dr. Maya Chen stood in the emergency department of Johns Hopkins Hospital, her medical degree now complemented by specialized training in crisis decision support systems. The compass pendant still hung around her neck, but it was now just one component of a broader technological ecosystem she'd helped develop for medical applications. "Dr. Chen, we have a multi-casualty incident coming in," the head nurse announced. "Bus accident with 17 injured, ETA 5 minutes. Maya activated her enhanced decision support system, which had evolved from her father's original surveillance technology into a medical tool that helped emergency physicians rapidly assess patient priorities and optimize treatment protocols. Unlike the original compass, this system operated with full transparency and patient consent, enhancing medical decision-making without compromising privacy. As the first ambulance arrived, Maya felt the familiar sensation of her analytical capabilities expanding to encompass multiple data streams simultaneously. Patient vital signs, injury patterns, resource availability, staff capabilities, all of it integrated into enhanced situational awareness that helped her coordinate the medical response with unprecedented efficiency. "Trauma Bay 1 needs the cardiac surgeon," she called out. Her enhanced pattern recognition identifying an injury profile that wouldn't be obvious to conventional assessment for several more minutes. Trauma Bay 3 can wait for the orthopedic resident, but Trauma Bay 2 needs immediate intervention for internal bleeding. Her decisions, guided by enhanced analytical capabilities, but grounded in medical training and human compassion, resulted in all 17 patients surviving injuries that would have claimed multiple lives under conventional emergency response protocols. Later that evening, as Maya completed her shift notes, she received an encrypted communication from Director Martinez, now heading a new civilian intelligence oversight agency. Dr. Chen, we have a situation developing in the Pacific that could benefit from your analytical capabilities. A container ship has gone missing with crew and cargo that could impact international trade relationships. Your assessment would be valuable. Maya read the message while finishing her medical documentation. 3 patients tonight had required her to make split-second decisions about resource allocation and treatment priorities. Each of those decisions had been informed by the same enhanced analytical capabilities that intelligence agencies wanted to use for geopolitical crisis management. She typed back, "Send briefing materials. I can review after my surgery rotation tomorrow. Patient care takes priority." As she walked home through the Baltimore streets, Maya reflected on how her father's legacy had evolved. The surveillance technology he died protecting had become a tool for saving lives rather than gathering intelligence. The enhanced analytical capabilities he'd prepared her to inherit had become a bridge between national security and public health. The moral judgment he'd hoped she would develop had become the foundation for ethical frameworks that guided how enhancement technologies were deployed in democratic societies. Her phone buzzed with a text from Sarah Kim, new documentary premiering next month about the democratization of intelligence technologies. You ready to be famous for saving the world through ethical decision-making? Maya smiled, thinking about the upcoming premiere and the continued evolution of her father's technological legacy. She was no longer the confused freshman who had been extracted from a college campus by Delta Force helicopters. She was Dr. Maya Chen, emergency physician, intelligence consultant, technology ethicist, and daughter of a fallen soldier, whose sacrifice had created opportunities for service that spanned far beyond military applications. 10 years later, the auditorium at MIT was packed with students, researchers, policymakers, and technology leaders who had come to hear Maya deliver the keynote address at the International Conference on Human Enhancement Ethics. Now 31 years old, Dr. Maya Chen had become a recognized authority on the integration of artificial intelligence with human decision-making in high-stakes environments. When I was 18, Maya began, military helicopters landed on my college campus to extract me for reasons I couldn't comprehend. I thought my life was being destroyed by circumstances beyond my control. What I discovered was that my life was actually beginning, not as a passive recipient of my father's legacy, but as an active architect of how that legacy would serve future generations. In the audience, Maya could see many familiar faces. Admiral Knox, now retired, but serving on the Civilian Oversight Board for Enhancement Technologies. Dr. Park, whose research had evolved from classified intelligence applications to open-source medical tools. Sarah Kim, whose journalistic work had helped establish international standards for consent-based surveillance technologies. Jessica sat in the front row with her husband and 2 young children, representing the normal life that Maya had managed to maintain alongside her extraordinary professional responsibilities. Maya's mother was there too, finally proud of the dangerous work her daughter had chosen because she could see how it honored her father's memory while serving humanitarian goals. The compass pendant I still wear, Maya continued, touching the silver device that had become a symbol of ethical technology development, reminds me daily that the most powerful technologies are tools for enhancing human judgment, not replacing My father's gift to me wasn't just enhanced analytical capabilities. It was the responsibility to ensure those capabilities serve human dignity rather than compromise it. After her presentation, Maya was approached by a young graduate student whose research focused on AI applications in emergency medicine. Dr. Chen, your work on consent-based enhancement systems has inspired my dissertation research. Do you think these technologies will eventually become available to ordinary people for everyday decision-making? Maya smiled, remembering her own innocence as an undergraduate student. That's exactly what we're working toward. The goal isn't to create a class of enhanced individuals who make decisions for everyone else. The goal is to democratize enhancement technology so that everyone can make better decisions about their own lives. How do we ensure the technologies don't create new forms of inequality? Through exactly the kind of research you're doing, Maya replied. By maintaining ethical oversight, requiring transparent consent processes, and never forgetting that the purpose of enhancement is to serve human flourishing, not technological advancement for its own sake. The graduate student nodded thoughtfully. Your father would be proud of what you've accomplished. Maya touched her compass pendant, feeling its familiar pulse against her chest. I think he would be, but more importantly, I think he would be proud that his sacrifice led to technologies that help people make better choices rather than forcing choices upon them. 15 years later, Maya stood in the rose garden behind her home in suburban Maryland, watching her 8-year-old daughter Emma practice using a children's version of the decision support technology that had evolved from her grandfather's military compass. The child-friendly device looked like a simple smartwatch but contained sophisticated algorithms designed to help young people develop better decision-making skills. Preparing and narrating this type of story took us long efforts and hard work. So if you are enjoying the story, please consider subscribing to our channel. Mom, it says I should finish my homework before playing video games, but it also says I should take breaks when I'm feeling frustrated. Emma called out, her face scrunched in concentration as she navigated the ethical reasoning interface. What do you think that means? Maya asked, settling beside her daughter on the garden bench. I think it means I should do homework for a while, then take a break if I get stuck, then go back to homework, then play games if I finish everything. Maya smiled, watching her daughter work through the same kind of complex decision-making that had once required classified military technology. The children's enhancement system didn't make decisions for Emma. It helped her understand the consequences of different choices and develop her own moral reasoning capabilities. That sounds like a very thoughtful approach, Maya agreed. What else does the system tell you? Emma consulted her device again. It says that good decisions usually consider other people's feelings, not just my own. So if I play games loudly while you're working, that wouldn't be a good decision even if I finished all my homework. Maya felt a profound sense of accomplishment. Her father's surveillance technology had evolved into a tool that helped children develop empathy and ethical reasoning. The same analytical capabilities that had once been used to profile potential terrorists were now helping 8-year-olds learn to consider how their actions affected others. Grandpa David would have loved to meet you, Maya told Emma, wrapping her arm around her daughter's shoulders. Tell me the story again about how he gave you the magic compass that helps people make good choices, Emma requested, settling against her mother's side. Maya looked at her own compass pendant, now joined by a medical alert device and a family photo locket on the same chain. The original technology continued to function, occasionally called upon for international crisis situations, but its primary purpose had become symbolic, a reminder of how individual sacrifice could evolve into collective benefit. Once upon a time, Maya began, there was a brave soldier who wanted to protect innocent people from those who would harm them. He developed a special technology that could help people see patterns and make better decisions, but he knew that Technology could also be dangerous if it fell into the wrong hands. As Maya told the story, she watched Emma absorb not just the narrative, but the underlying principles, that power should serve others, that technology should enhance rather than replace human judgment, and that individual choices could have far-reaching consequences for good or ill. 20 years later, the small ceremony at Arlington National Cemetery was attended by fewer than 30 people, but they represented a remarkable cross-section of Maya's life and impact. Government officials stood alongside medical colleagues, technology researchers beside former patients, family members next to international human rights advocates. Maya, now 43 and serving as Director of Ethical Technology Integration at the World Health Organization, had requested this memorial service on the 20th anniversary of her father's death to honor not just his sacrifice, but the evolution of his legacy. Staff Sergeant David Chen died believing that his final mission had failed, Maya said, standing before her father's headstone. He couldn't have imagined that his greatest success would come through the daughter he was trying to protect, or that the technology he died developing would eventually help millions of people make better decisions about their health, their relationships, and their contributions to society. Emma, now 28 and working as a pediatric emergency physician, stood beside her mother wearing her own version of the decision support technology, an elegant piece of jewelry that helped her optimize treatment decisions for critically ill children. The technology had become so integrated into medical practice that Emma's generation took enhanced analytical capabilities for granted, using them as naturally as previous generations had used stethoscopes and thermometers. Sarah Kim, now a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and author of 3 books about technology ethics, stepped forward to place a wreath at the headstone. David Chen's true monument isn't made of stone or metal, she said. It's made of the lives saved by enhanced medical decision-making, the terrorist attacks prevented by ethical intelligence operations, and the democratic institutions strengthened by transparent technology oversight. After the ceremony, as the small group gathered for a reception at Maya's home, Admiral Knox, now in her 80s but still sharp, pulled Maya aside for a private conversation. "I've been thinking about something your father said during his final briefing before Operation Nightingale," Knox said. "He told me that the measure of a soldier's success isn't the missions completed, but the world left behind for the next generation. I think he would be astonished by the world you've helped create." Maya looked around at the gathering, former intelligence officers discussing ethical oversight with medical researchers, her daughter explaining enhancement technology applications to fascinated graduate students, technology developers debating privacy protections with civil liberties advocates. It was exactly the kind of integration between security, technology, and human values that her father had hoped for, but never lived to see. "I think he would be most proud that we found a way to honor his sacrifice without perpetuating the cycle of violence that claimed his life," Maya replied. "The greatest tribute to a soldier who died protecting others is a world where such sacrifices become less necessary." 25 years later, Maya sat in her study, now 68 years old and officially retired, but still consulted regularly on complex ethical technology questions. The walls were lined with awards, honorary degrees, and photographs documenting a career that had spanned emergency medicine, intelligence consulting, technology development, and international diplomacy. On her desk sat the original compass pendant, now displayed in a custom case alongside letters from the thousands of people whose lives had been improved by the decision support technologies that had evolved from her father's military device. Medical professionals, crisis responders, educators, parents, and ordinary citizens who had used enhancement technologies to make better choices about everything from career decisions to relationship conflicts. Her granddaughter Lucy, Emma's 12-year-old daughter, was visiting for the weekend and had spent the morning interviewing Maya for a school project about family history. "Grandma Maya, do you ever wish your life had been different? Like, What if the helicopters had never come to your college? Maya considered the question carefully. She thought about the normal life she might have lived, perhaps a successful medical career focused purely on clinical practice, a quieter existence free from classified briefings and international crises. She thought about the weight of carrying her father's legacy, the burden of making decisions that affected not just individual patients, but entire communities and nations. I think about it sometimes, Maya admitted. But then I remember that every technology we've developed, every life we've saved, every ethical framework we've established, all of it traces back to that moment when I chose to get on the helicopter. Instead of walking away. But weren't you scared? Terrified, Maya replied honestly. But fear isn't a reason to avoid doing what's right. Your great-grandfather taught me that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing to act in service of others despite being afraid. Lucy nodded solemnly, making notes on her tablet. Mom says you're the reason doctors can help people better. Now, is that true? Maya smiled, thinking about the millions of medical decisions that were enhanced every day by technologies derived from her father's compass. I helped, but lots of people contributed. The most important thing I did was make sure that the technologies were developed with respect for human dignity and democratic values. Technology is only as good as the principles that guide its use. Will you teach me how to use the decision support systems when I'm older? You're already learning, Maya replied, pointing to Lucy's tablet, which contained age-appropriate decision-making. Tools that help children understand consequences and develop empathy. But remember, the technology doesn't make choices for you. It helps you understand your options so you can make better choices yourself. As Lucy returned to her homework, Maya opened her laptop to review a briefing about a new international crisis that might benefit from her analytical capabilities. A natural disaster in Southeast Asia had created refugee flows that were straining regional resources and threatening to destabilize several governments. International aid organizations were requesting her assistance in optimizing resource allocation and predicting population movement patterns. Maya read through the briefing materials, her enhanced analytical capabilities automatically identifying patterns and interconnections that would help coordinate the humanitarian response. Even in retirement, her father's gift continued to serve others. She drafted a response accepting the consultation, then paused to look at her compass pendant one more time. 28 years had passed since those Delta Force helicopters had landed on her college campus, transforming her from a bewildered freshman into a key figure in the evolution of ethical technology applications. The scared 18-year-old who had clutched her organic chemistry textbook while walking toward military helicopters had become a confident professional who used enhanced capabilities to serve others, while maintaining unwavering commitment to human dignity and democratic values. Her father's legacy had evolved from classified military intelligence into open-source tools that helped ordinary people make extraordinary contributions to human welfare. Maya closed her laptop and walked to the window, looking out at the garden, where Emma and Lucy were playing together, 3 generations of women connected by love, service, and the continuing evolution of one soldier's sacrifice into technologies that served peace rather than war. The compass pendant pulsed gently against her chest, its monitoring systems detecting her contentment and sense of completion. Tomorrow she would begin consulting on the refugee crisis, using her enhanced analytical capabilities to help coordinate international humanitarian responses. Next month, she would deliver the keynote address at the Global Conference on Democratic Technology Governance. Next year, she would publish her memoir, documenting how military surveillance technology had evolved into tools for human enhancement and democratic empowerment. But today, she was simply a grandmother watching her family play in the afternoon sunlight, knowing that her father's greatest victory had been creating a legacy that enhanced human potential rather than diminishing it. The shadow world her father had inhabited, a realm of classified operations, moral ambiguity, and deadly Consequences had been transformed into something that honored his sacrifice while serving the values he had died protecting. The compass that had once been a tool of surveillance had become a symbol of ethical technology development, proving that individual choices could indeed change the world when guided by principle and sustained by courage. Maya touched the pendant one more time, feeling connected across time and space to the Father who had given her this burden and this opportunity. Then she stepped outside to join her family in the garden, carrying forward his mission of protecting others while building a world where such protection served human flourishing rather than human control. The story that had begun with Delta Force helicopters landing on a college campus had evolved into something far greater, a testament to the power of ethical leadership, technological innovation, and unwavering commitment to human dignity in the face of impossible choices.